Hello everyone, Mike Silverman here, and over the last 2 days I have removed and reinstalled the brake servo or booster in my Saab 93 2006 left-hand drive 2.0T B207R engine. Type, well I've done it 3 times, so I'm here to show you how that works. In this video it's my second time doing it, and I did another time after that. Unfortunately, the video was taken in time lapse up until about right when I removed the brake master cylinder. So I have slowed down that time lapse footage, and I'm going to play it back now and give commentary on it and pause and point things out with my mouse cursor. And hopefully that will be a good start to show you how to remove the brake master cylinder. And then after that point on, we'll have real video to show you, so it'll be a lot better. But I still hope this will be useful. So first we are going to remove the battery. It's a 10 millimeter. I already took off the negative terminal. You're supposed to take that one off first so that you don't accidentally like shock while taking this one off if that one's still connected and you like accidentally touch it. Anyway, we are gonna watch me do that. So I'm removing that terminal. And there's a 13 millimeter thing way down there. That's a little bracket that holds the battery in. And we're going to use an extension, and mine is stripped out, but I still put it in to help space it out. There it is. You can see that's the bolt, and that's how it fits. Now I have to retrieve my socket that I left in there, and I just shift the battery. I'm just going to pause because you see I'm pointing that way. The battery's under like a little thing that holds it down, so you push it that way and then pull it straight up. Now, if you're just removing, okay, hold on. First, I'm going to remove this little security plug thing that I guess detects if your hood gets open when your car's locked. And I'm not exactly sure if that's what it does. Mine was like never plugged in before I did this job, but now it is. So if yours is plugged in, it's there. It's like one of those little fold out the clip thing. You'll see some more of those later, and that's out. Now I'm going to point out these three Torx 40 bolts that are holding down the battery bottom box holder thing. If you're just removing the brake master cylinder, Saab WIS does not say to do this, but I found that in order to get an extension in there, there's a nut under there that we're going to look at later. It's very helpful to have this out of the way, and you do have to remove this to remove the ABS module anyway. So you have to remove this to get to the servo. So if you're just doing the brake master cylinder, I would still do this because it just makes it a lot easier. So those are them. We're going to use the Torx 40. And I try to put on a screwdriver, but they're really tight. The first time I did this, they were incredibly tight. I used a lot of WD-40, smacked on them. Now here you see me using the ratchet to get them out. These had already been removed, so it was still a little bit sticky. Surprisingly, they like stick in there. I don't even tighten that much, but there's those three. Actually can't see one of them, but it's like that's where it was. Now here I'm pointing out these clips that this fuse box is, it's like slotted downward onto them. And then there's this one here. Mine's actually not engaged, but you would just push this little tab out. Yeah, I'm pointing to it. And you would just push it out like that. And I'm just going to pull it straight up. It's a jarring camera angle here, but I just put the camera down in the car and you can see you can slide it up. There's two things I'm going to point out. Those little things slide into there, and that tab fits where my finger just poked out of this hole. Okay, now I'm going to show you this wire. There's like a little tab that connects it to this side of the battery box. This thing actually is going to come off the bottom battery holder, but I'm just going to point it out in the video. It's a terrible angle, but there's a little tab. There it is. I'm hitting it with the flashlight. This little thing, if you come from the other side and like squeeze on it, it's better to take the box out first, actually. But mine was already out because I never put it back in the first time. And there's like a little hole in there that you attach it to. Now we're going to take out the box. Make sure your 3 bolts are out. Mine are obviously right there. And, oh, we're not going to take out the box. I'm sliding this outer shell thing that holds on. To be honest, I don't even know what this is. Some computer thing. We're pulling that up. There's those. We'll go back a little bit, actually. I just want to pause on these certain tabs. Yeah, okay, so there's this little notch, and then there's one behind my finger there, and that slides there. And then these tabs are in the bottom there. Now that's detached. The fuse box is attached. Move the positive battery thing out of the way. Cable, or little compression artifact there. So we just pull it out, and you have to like angle it out because there's this like cup holder thing, like a plate. I don't know what it's for, but this is what I'm talking about. Is like stuck under the fuse box. Okay, that's out of the way. We need this to remove this because you need to remove these bolts, which is an engine mount, but we'll get to that later. But for us, it's just going to help us get a better angle for removing the brake master cylinder. And now would be the time you would unclip that little wire there. And just, you can flop it around wherever you need it now. Okay, big zoom. This is to show you the coolant level sensor. And there is a tab underneath it. I tried to pull this out a little bit too hard, didn't realize there was a tab underneath it. You're going to see another tab on top of this other one. So there's the tab. It's bendy. You bend it back and you pull it straight out. Careful, your fingers can get hurt by these little sharp edges. Here is the exact same thing in black plastic instead of purple or blue, but it's like on the top, so it's actually easy to see. That's the brake fluid level sensor, and you just pull that straight out. Now, we did remove that coolant level sensor because we're going to move this out of the way in a little bit. Now, what am I doing? I'm just flopping the wire out of the way that had those two sensors on them. Now, I'm going to pull this up and out. There's like a plastic tab on each side that's trying to come up through the metal and come out like that. And we can just flop it and hold it on this little thing off to the side. This being out of the way helps you reach this thing, which is holding on the brake master cylinder, and it's also, you really need out of the way to get the servo. We can finally see the servo is showing itself back there. All right, next, what's next? I'm showing you the nuts we're gonna have to remove for the brake master cylinder because you might want to take this out without, to just change this. Right? So there's these two nuts, and it's not this Torx thing. That is separate. It is this outer thing that is being threaded onto. It's a weird assembly, but we'll see as we take it apart. The first time I did this, I tried taking this out because I was like, oh, mine must be different. Then in the other video, I'll just take that. And that was a mistake. These are holding the servo in. These hexagonal ones are holding the brake master cylinder onto the servo. So that's one. And then there's one over there. I'm going to show you, pointing out with the magnet. So we need those. Okay, to get to those, we're going to take off these brake pipes, brake lines. It's an 11 millimeter, which I just showed. And I'm putting down some rags because we're going to take these off and fluid is going to leak out of them. My replacement brake master cylinder came with these convenient little caps. Now on WIS, they say you're supposed to like drain out the master cylinder by bleeding from certain like calipers. You could also, the first time I did this, I used the like auto bleeder air compressor thing to suck it out. I'm just going to try to keep all the fluid in there so I don't have to bench bleed it later. So when I take off the things, I'll just screw those things right back in. So these might be kind of hard to undo, but it's the second time I'm doing it, so it's not too bad. Try not to round them off, and just be super careful. If you had a flare nut wrench, it'd probably be better, but I don't. So these nuts slide on the pipe. We should see it pretty soon. See, I've slid it out of there, but the flare end of this is still in there. It's like a bent piece of metal that's touching a mating surface inside of this. I'm going to take it out real quick and screw in the little plug. You could probably use like um, ear plugs for this too. And we're just going to get the other one. This part of the job can be pretty time consuming, but just don't give up. You'll get it. Oh, you can bend these pipes a little bit, so you see I'm like kind of forcing out of the way. And we stop the fluid from draining. Don't forget to take your rags out. Okay, so here's the 22 millimeter socket with extension. Now, one thing I'll point out about this that could have been better. You can see there's like a thickener on this because this is a 1/2 inch socket, like on this end, and 3/8 would help you get in there better, but 22 is so large they usually only sell it with 1/2 inch. But online, you can, if you're buying it online, you could get a 3/8 attachment, and you'd have a thinner extension here. See, it gets thicker there because of that, and that could be helpful when you're trying to get to that one. But it's not necessary. We're gonna go show you how you get on this one. You just bend those pipes up, and you come from underneath. And now this one, you can see I'm like trying to fit it in there, and it doesn't say you have to remove these pipes on WIS, but you're gonna see it's like pretty much impossible to get in there. And the first time I did this, I was just like pushing this thing out of the way and trying every angle, and I severely rounded these edges of the nut there. So we're just going to end up taking these brake lines out of the way. The first time you remove them, the first time I removed them, it was really hard to undo them. So I don't know if it was just because my car is almost 20 years old and no one ever did this before, or if somebody just tightened it too much, but I think it's just corrosion built up over the years. Now, these are these little plugs that I just showed they also came with the brake master cylinder, and I'm just going to use them to plug the holes so dirt doesn't get into the top of the ABS module. And we just plug that in there, and we can take out the pipe. When you take it out, it's going to spill fluid on a lot of stuff, so be careful when you lift it up. Now let's take out the other one. And you might really have to crank on it the first time. Just make sure you're going the correct direction. And we'll plug the hole and take out the pipe. Be careful not to spill fluid on anything you don't want brake fluid on, like painted surfaces, because it will damage your paint. If you spill it, you can wipe it off with soap and water real quick. And now you can see we have access to that top one there. At this point, I'm gonna point something out to you, which is from a different camera angle, which is to actually still to get on this, you have to push the brake master cylinder. You can see it wiggling a little bit. So there's like a plastic part in there, the edge of this reservoir. You have to like push it to the side. It'll bend a little bit. And we can get it on there. And you really want to, yeah, I'm showing you like push it over there. You really want to push also that way with your ratchet because you don't want to slip and round it like I did. Also, the first time I took this off, it was incredibly difficult. I had to add an extension on this. I think I even used a breaker bar on mine the first time. They were really tight on there. And these are supposed to be put on with blue thread locker. So maybe that was it. But they were very tough. Now, I torqued them correctly. This is me taking it off after I've already done this. And they were not that hard to take off when I torqued them correctly. But maybe it was just the years. And you can see here the roundedness because I was trying to do it without removing the battery box the first time, without removing those pipes from the ABS module, and that caused me to get really terrible angles, especially on the top one. And once we've taken off the bottom one, you can see it's flexing. It has more freedom to move on the bottom. And there's my other one, a little bit brake dust on it, or dried brake fluid. Now we're just going to pull this thing straight out. The first time I did this, I heard a suctioning sound, and I guess there was vacuum still left inside this, escaping. And this time, it was not that hard. And here we have our brake servo. There's the push rod that connects to the brake master cylinder and pushes it. And here is the brake master cylinder. See, there's the little gasket. That's the thing. This is actually hollow on the inside, and the push rod from the booster goes into that. When we put it back on, we have to definitely line it up correctly. So if you want to take your, I'm going to point out this thing. If you want to take the reservoir off, you have to take out this E-Torx. I forget what size it is, but you unscrew it. Mine was quite corroded, and I had to wiggle it back and forth with pliers extremely difficultly to get it out. But when I put it back in, I like sanded off the rust. Then once that's pulled outward, these are just like squished in there, and I like I think I put a screwdriver under a little slot in here and just tilted it back and forth to try to wiggle it upward. And then putting it back is also really hard. I saw in another video someone used a vise to do it, but I am a little bit afraid to squish plastic in a vise. Next, we will work on the ABS module, and I actually have real video for that, so we're going to switch over to the real video. Alrighty, so we're going to remove the ABS module, and you got to take off these 4 brake lines at the top. The first time I took these off, they were really hard to take off, but the second time they were not very hard to take off because I didn't tighten them very much. You're supposed to torque them to 12 foot-pounds, but I think they were definitely tighter than that the first time. And also, some of them weren't sliding like they were supposed to because there was rust in between the pipe and the flare nut. But here we go. We take them all off. Try not to get any debris into the holes. Then we're going to take off the electrical connector. You want to push on these tabs here and pull the big tab on this side. And just be careful because it could be brittle. But if you push and pull at the same time, it should be fine. Now we're going to pull the top part out or the top part up and the tab forward. And it should come off nicely. And we're going to use a 13mm to take off these 2 mounting bolts. The torque for these is only 18 foot-pounds, so it should come out pretty easily. And now we need to move the ABS module up. There is a rubber pin at the bottom that it's stuck in, and you want to bend these top brake lines off to the side. And probably move that wire out of the way. Be a little finicky, and the rubber grommet that's holding the little pin at the bottom can make it sticky. Once that's free, it's also pretty heavy because there's a motor on the bottom. And there's that pin I was talking about. And that's where it would have fit. Next, we're going to remove this thing, which I forget what it is. Something important. And we're going to push the tabs and pull the other tab. And we're just going to pull that off to the side. And we'll use a 10mm socket to remove the bolts that are holding it, and they should not be very tight. Now we're going to position a jack under the engine using a wood block so we don't scrape up the engine. Since the engine is aluminum, I'm probably actually going to put it on the transmission because we are going to need to let the engine be lowered gently to be able to remove the brake booster. So here I'm positioning it kind of farther to the back. Just try to get a good central spot that is under the engine mount. And we're going to use an external Torx 14 on the 3 bolts. for the engine mount. And the torque spec for these is 52 foot-pounds plus 45 degrees, so it could be pretty tight. You see I'm using the pipe extension on a ratchet. It's not enough, so we got to upgrade to a breaker bar. And that should come off. And you can do the rest of it with a smaller ratchet to make it go faster once they are broken free. Now that they're removed, we could lower the engine, and you can see it's dropping. And I just let it drop just to where it stops dropping, and then I jacked it up a little bit so it's not resting its full weight on the uh, like other engine mounts. So it's being held by the jack just at the where it bottomed out. And now we're going to put this electrical connector out of the way, tucking it under the coolant hose. And now we got to remove this vacuum line that goes to the brake booster. We got to push in those two little things and pull it straight outward. And you can see that this thing, oh, by the way, that thing in the middle is a check valve that lets vacuum only flow a certain way. And if you think this tube, or if you think the check valve is like a problem for you, you can like blow on it or suck air through it with your mouth. And you can see if it only lets air go one way. Mine was fine, and then I washed my mouth when I was done. You can see that's where it connects to the brake booster. So I'd like to remove this. You could remove it after you remove the brake booster, but it's easier to remove the brake booster if you remove it now. And I'm trying to use these trim removal tools to do it, but it's not going to work. You can see I try it with one. Try to do the double, go from both sides. It's just too tight in there. You'll see what the connector looks like when I get it out. The way I'm going to get it out is just by gripping it with my hand and rocking it back and forth. You really need to be quite forceful. And there you see, I cut out a lot of like struggling, but that's what it looks like. These ridges are holding it, and it's wet because I put lubricant on it after I took it out the first time to make it go in easier. And it was still really hard to take out. The lubricant, I'll show you what I use later. And that's a little rubber attachment. Now we're inside the driver's side, left-hand drive. This is, they call the acoustic baffle in Saab WIS. And this is just one screw holds this thing on, which I'm going to show you the location. It's behind the chair, or the driver's seat, and that's where it would go. And you just unscrew that, and then you would slide this towards that direction, because there's this little clip. Let me show you the clip again. This thing. So you want to slide it that way, and then just put that in the back seats. This plate comes from underneath the steering wheel, above the pedals, and there's a few screws that hold it in. So I forgot to video where they are, but you'll find them. And here is the light that's supposed to light up the bottom, and these two connectors attached to it. Then this is the OBD2 connector that also comes through one of the holes. I didn't get too much detail video on that. All right, now we got to go under there. And this was my strategy. I kind of lean backwards. I'm checking my headlamp there, because you're going to want to be able to see. It's pretty dark. And you just kind of do one of those. And then we're going to be able to see that under here, this is the brake pedal stop. It's supposed to come all the way up to that, I guess, but mine doesn't, even if I completely disconnect it. So I don't know. I've read it's supposed to be held by this, but mine never does. Behind that, there's some switches that this thing rests on, and we're going to take this clip off, which attaches to the push rod, and the brake booster is on the other side of here. So this is the pedal to brake booster push rod. We got to take off this clip. See, I'm trying to push it, but you have to lift up this tab here. I'm going to show you in a second with the screwdriver. So maybe you can kind of see there is the thing you have to lift up. Once you've lifted that up, you can push it that way. And I've already done it, but here I'm pointing with the screwdriver. I just put a little screwdriver in there and lifted the tab up. Now it should be very easy to push off. There's also this plastic washer, and now you can push that thing right out. And this is what the pieces look like when they are out of the car. With that being done, we're able to remove the brake booster with a Torx 45. And there are two very long bolts. You might feel them being a little bit rubbery. There's actually two little rubber gaskets, which I believe is to prevent noise and vibration, that are on the other side of these bolts that the bolts are going through. So they could feel a little sticky even once you've unscrewed them. You see they're super long. And gently let the brake booster just rest there. Now, getting this out is quite difficult, or it was the first time, but you're going to see kind of how I do it. This is why we removed this computer here, to give us extra room. WIS does not say to do that, but I thought of the idea because I was like, I keep bumping into this electrical connector. So I think it helped. And there is like a certain orientation that you need to do, and there's the push rod also is like not able to come out of the hole unless you push it in a little bit or bend it a little bit. And you can see I just bent the push rod, the one that was like kind of behind my arm now. This thing is like stuck in that hole, and you have to push it at an angle to get it out. Now, what am I doing? I'm collecting those two little, here, let's go back. These are the two O-rings that those two long bolts were going through. And I did not get a very good shot of removing them because I got in the way of the camera. That's what I'm doing here. And this is what they look like with a little bit of silicone grease that I put on them to make them easier to install. All right, so I thought there's a problem with this because my brake pedal was staying on the whole time, even when the car was off. And this is my self-made gasket because they do not sell the gasket anymore. But you can see this is 1/16 inch gasket material. And we're going to compare it to the gasket material on the old one. But before we do that, let's look and see what it looks like inside. You can actually see mine has, I don't know if it came like this, but there's this like fuzzy white bit right there is actually like dried. Yeah, there's a little, there it is, dried brake fluid. So I don't know how that got on there. Maybe I just spilled it when I was installing it. This is the old gasket. You can see it's way thinner and super compressed. And I thought maybe like because it was too thick, it was like pulling this push rod forward and causing the brake to not rebound enough. But it turns out my remanufactured one over there was actually had a slightly shorter push rod. Um, so that's not going to work. And we put some more silicone paste on these just to have them stick in place because they keep wanting to fall down. You have to put them in there to line them up, or I mean, like I don't know if that's how you have to do it, but there's no instructions about that I could find. So I position them like that, and then I position the booster. And here I'm going to try to angle the push rod in, just like getting it out was difficult, putting it in can be kind of difficult. You just have to angle it in. And here we're going to get there. I just put it in there. I had to kind of push it and angle it, but you'll figure it out. And we got to get our trusty Torx 45 to install this. Just tighten a slight amount right now. You don't want to bottom out yet because the push rod might not be aligned with the pedal. And you can see here, mine was not aligned with the pedal, so I actually had to unscrew mine and then make sure this was like slotted in. Let me show you one more time. See, this needs to be rotated that way so it can slot onto the pedal. And this, it was not, so I had to loosen those two long bolts. And we wanted to go to 20 Newton meters of torque for these two long bolts. And next we'll install the vacuum line that goes to the vacuum pump. And we put a little silicone paste on it. WIS does not say to do that, but it helped me, and I don't think it's going to hurt to put some silicone paste on rubber that's not moving rapidly. And you should hear that click in. I turned the sound off because people were mowing the lawn. We're going to jack up the engine so we can align it with those three holes. And we're just going to reinstall those engine mount bolts. And that's the E14 at 52 foot-pounds of torque. And then we add an extra 45-degree turn after they've been torqued to 52 foot-pounds. So now we're gonna put the ABS module back in. You gotta line up that little pin with the rubber grommet at the bottom, and you gotta bend those brake lines out of the way to get it to be able to go down there. And you want to try to line up those two holes to mount it with those two bolts. Those are gonna be 13 millimeters, and I'm just pre-positioning these. Actually, I'm actually installing them now. I forgot I did that. Yep, I'm just hand tightening those for the moment. And then we're going to use that 13 millimeter at 18 foot-pounds to torque those down. Although I think you really don't have to torque them to spec or anything, just, you know, nice and tight. And it's 11 millimeter wrench for the flare nuts. And these are supposed to be 12 foot-pounds, but I don't have that extension for the torque wrench to do that, so I just do it hand tight, decently tight, moderately tight, but not too tight. And you're supposed to put some thread locker. I also forgot to say this. You're supposed to put thread locker on those long bolts, but I did not do that. And you're supposed to put thread locker on these two nuts that hold on the brake master cylinder. And I also did not do that, but you know, you're supposed to. So if you're watching this video many years from now and you're wondering how that's worked out for me, you know, feel free to leave a comment. We're attaching the brake master cylinder, and I'm trying to push it in flush, and I'm doing the nuts hand tight. There is a little bit of wiggle. Of course, we're using the 22 millimeter. There's a little bit of wiggle that you can do, so you want to make sure that you're not like tightening one, but it's not like slotting into the hole, because you can tilt it too much in one way or the other. And then it's going to be 18 foot-pounds with the 22 millimeter socket. You can see how easy it is to get in there without those brake lines in the way. In fact, you could install this theoretically before you even install the ABS module, and that would be even easier. But some people need to install brake master cylinder without removing the ABS module, so you can do that. So there's going to be brake fluid coming out of the holes temporarily, so we'll put down some rags. And I'm lining that up. This one's going to go from this hole to the far back one. And I really wish I had more of those little yellow things, but when the ABS was out of the car, I just put a piece of wood over those four holes and just rested it on top so that no stuff would get in. And we try to thread this by hand. If it's not going easily, just keep going backwards and then like back and forward, and you know, don't force it in, because I had a lot of times where I felt a lot of resistance and I just had to wiggle it to the right angle, because it should not be hard to do. Most of the time I could do them by hand almost to the bottom. Especially these ones were quite angly. You can see I backed it out. I'm backing out to try to feel it click, and there you go. Hand tightenable. And you can torque it to 12 foot-pounds precisely with your hand. And don't forget to tighten this one at the top. I left that one loose so I could angle the other one more easily. Same thing here. I'm going to mostly tighten the top, but not fully tighten it until the bottom one is in. I think this one gave me a lot of trouble, as I recall. With my left hand, I'm wiggling the metal to try to get the alignment. Let me loosen it up there so you get better wiggling. There you go. Goes in by hand. And give it a good moderate tightening. And don't forget the top. Now I'm gonna spray some brake cleaner very carefully and holding a rag so it doesn't overspray and hit any plastic, because you're not supposed to spray brake cleaner on plastic or rubber. But I wanted to clean up a little bit in there. We're gonna put this thing back on. Ah, yes, the Mitsubishi Ion module. It's 10mm. As far as I know, there's not really a torque spec, but if there is, it's gonna be pretty low. So I just tighten it moderately, less so than the brake nuts. And let's plug it back in. You want to push down from the top while also inward on that red thing. Mine was also pretty sticky, so I've put some silicone paste to lubricate it. And we're just gonna remount the coolant man, I forgot what those are called, but you know, where the extra coolant can go. I want to call it the overflow container, but that's not right. Okay, so we're gonna plug in the fluid sensors for the brake fluid and coolant. The expansion tank, that's what it's called. Okay. Now we're gonna reattach the bottom battery holder. And we gotta slot in this outer shell. There's a tab over there and over there. I'm trying to get them in the slots. Now I'm going to slot back in the fuse box. And remember that has a slot over there and over there. I clearly left something under there, the positive battery terminal, or wire. And that's nicely slotted in. Now we want to line up the holes. Oh, I'm trying to get that wire that attaches down there. Yep, there's a little wire down there that you can plug back in if you want. And we're going to reattach this security feature. The security system thing for knowing if your trunk was opened. I mean the hood. Okay, these are the Torx 40 screws that hold in the bottom battery cover. And they also say to use thread locker on this, but I definitely did not because they were way too hard to take out. And also, how is this thing going to become undone when there's a whole battery like on top of it? We're going to slide the battery forward because there's a little tab that sits under. And we'll use the 13mm to reattach this uh, thing. By the way, my threads for this is completely stripped, and if that happened to you as well, I still put this in because it like pushes it this way, and then there's that tab under there. But if it's still wiggling a little bit, which can cause these to come loose, and it happened to me one time, and I lost power steering in a different car, that happened. But what I do is I still put this in, and I put a little thin piece of wood here, and then it's not moving at all. All right, so that is how to install or replace your brake booster, also your ABS module, also your brake master cylinder. After this, I had someone help me bleed the brakes, and we did it with the engine on because I wanted the vacuum assist. I don't know if that's a good idea or not. WIS does not say to do that. And like I said, this one that I put in was the remanufactured one. The push rod that goes between the pedal and um, the booster was too short, I believe, which was causing my brake lights to be permanently on because the pedal was being lifted up off of the switches. And when I test drove it and did a hard braking, my brakes completely locked up, and I had to drive home with the brakes completely engaged, and my engine was like smoking after that. So luckily, I was not very far from home. I eventually just put my old brake booster back in, and actually, it seems to be pretty much fine. And I like really don't know why that happened with my brakes locking up. And I posted on the Saab Central forums, and maybe we'll figure it out, maybe not. But for now, seems to be fine. Oh yeah, also people are saying like adjust your push rod, the one in the um, inside the booster that pushes on the master cylinder. But as far as I can tell, these are not adjustable. There's no information on adjusting them, either one of the push rods. So I think my unit was either defective or from the wrong model year because they made a like a different one for a different model year, but I also can't tell the difference by looking at pictures. So it's all a mystery, basically. But yeah, hopefully this was helpful. This has been Mike Silverman from the Snowden YouTube channel. Thanks for stopping by to fix your car. Have a great day. Goodbye.